Good evening, everyone. I'm Eric de Montgolfier, Chief Executive of Invest Europe. I would like to thank 0100 Virtual Europe for their invitation and for giving me the opportunity to speak during this conference. It is a long while since I was able to report positive news from so many different angles. So let's enjoy the moment while remaining humble in this very strong operating environment. Next slide, please. Next slide. A quick word first on who we are and what we do. Invest Europe is the largest private equity association in the world, bringing together 650 members, GPs as well as LPs, with a good balance between our full members, 1/3 VC, 1/3 growth and buyouts, and 1/3 LPs, and a well-represented ecosystem with 100 associate members, such as placement agents, law, accounting, consultancy, and IT firms. Our GP members represent 70% of the 700 billion euros AUM managed by our industry in Europe. Next slide, please. We entertain also a close working relationship and coordination with national associations across Europe. A good example of that is the European Data Cooperative, a joint initiative developed by Invest Europe and its national association partners. As a result of these joint efforts, we produce the most comprehensive overview of Europe's private equity and venture capital markets available, which feeds our unparalleled data and insights and the ability to produce the matter referred to in the title of this presentation. More than 1,600 GPs currently provide data to the EDC, covering 90% of the 7 billion euros PE and VC AUM in Europe. Next slide, please. Let's move now to the section of this presentation I call the heart. Because guess what? Our industry has a heart and does not only generate strong financial performance and returns. Joke apart, due to the increasing size and visibility of our industry and to the impact of the pandemic on our economies, societies, and personal lives, it is critical to be able to provide hard evidence on PE's contribution and support to the wider economy and society, and show that PE, in essence, is a force for good. We always knew it, but now we can prove it. This is the main purpose of our Private Equity at Work report and of the special pandemic edition of our VC Factor report that I will cover in the next couple of slides. Next slides, please. As slide 5 shows, our industry is securing jobs for millions. A total of 10.2 million people were employed at over 23,000 portfolio companies at the end of 2019, ranging from startups and SMEs to large multinationals, according to the second edition of Invest Europe's employment study. That equates to 4.3% of Europe's active workforce and is on a par with the entire population of Sweden. Our industry has a major seat at the European Union table. Next slide, please. Slide 6 demonstrates also that our industry is not only securing jobs, but is increasing employment far faster than the European average. Companies backed by private equity added slightly more than 254,000 net new jobs in 2019, about the same as the working population of Tallinn in Estonia. The figure represents growth of 5.5% on the previous year and far outstrips the average growth rate of 0.9% for Europe as a whole. Around 500,000 people in Europe found new work with private equity-backed companies in 2018 and 2019 combined. All segments of the market, from seed to buyout, generated job growth at the companies they backed. Our report, which is not reflected here on this slide, also highlights the industry's outperformance in sectors that can support the recovery from COVID-19 and drive long-term competitiveness in Europe. ICT was the leading sector for employment growth, adding 7% more jobs in 2019, followed by biotech and healthcare, and energy and environment, both growing by 6%. The large consumer goods and services and business products and services sectors, which each employ 3 million people at private equity and VC-backed companies, created a combined total of almost 140,000 net new jobs each in 2019. To conclude, employment and portfolio companies under PE and VC stewardship entered 2020 in a strong position, increasing its ability to weather the pandemic and related shocks. It is, we think, a powerful message for stakeholders within and outside of the industry. Next slide, please. Support is at the very core of what this industry provides. Every day, VC firms provide capital and expertise to entrepreneurial companies across Europe. They help them to develop and grow, laying the foundation for a better tomorrow. We saw this clearly following COVID-19. The VC Factor Pandemic Edition report, which we released in mid-October with the European Investment Fund, showed that the European VC industry adapted quickly to these unprecedented circumstances. Staying steady in the month that followed the pandemic outbreak, the industry grew further by year-end, with a record 12 billion euros invested to support existing and back new European startups and scale-ups in 2020. Preliminary data from our research team shows that venture companies received over 10 billion euros in the first 6 months of 2021, the highest level ever recorded. This is almost twice what was invested in H1 2020, and already 85% of 2020's total venture investments. Next slide, please. So, how is the mood in our industry with those various figures already mentioned? Well, combining leading quantitative analysis with qualitative insights is exhibited by the second edition of our markets sentiment survey of GPs and LPs, done in partnership with ADL and to be published shortly on 17th of November. It complements the VC market sentiment survey recently released by the EIF with our support, completing our sentiment surveying across the entire PE and VC ecosystem. Next slide, please. Let's focus on the 6 main takeaways of this survey launched across summer 2021. If we look at 2020 and the first half of 2021, the 350 GPs and LPs surveyed noted, first, COVID-19 was a short, sharp shock, but not uniformly negative, rather balanced and spread across portfolios and geographies. Second, it clearly accelerated the momentum in transformation at portfolio company level, with digitalization and ESG the overarching themes. Third, as a result, a rise of ESG and impact funds was noted, as ESG concerns are increasingly front of mind for GPs and LPs alike. Looking forward, respondents expected a more competitive PE market with auctions, IPOs, higher prices, potentially higher leverage as well, while being more confident in being able to source significant investment opportunities than in the past, driven in part by a stronger push for portfolio divestments. And last but not least, expecting more capital to be committed to the asset class, generating stronger fundraising opportunities. All in all, a very positive outlook with increased activity and opportunities expected by market participants. Next slide, please. So how do these good vibrations, so to speak, if you allow me to quote the Beach Boys, translate into the most recent facts and figures. If we look at the fundraising, first and foremost, H1 2021 fundraising figures for Europe reach a little bit more than 52 billion euros. This is in line with the median amount raised during the first half of over the past 5 years, between 2016 and 2020, but it's also in line with the fundraising experienced over the first half of 2019, pre-pandemic. On the investment side, H1 2021 figures show that 57.3 billion euros of equity was invested into European companies. This is the highest level of investment ever seen in any half-year period to date, and is a 38% increase from H1 2020, as well as a 27% increase from H1 2019 pre-pandemic. On the divestment side, divestment at cost for H1 2021 reached a little bit over 16 billion euros, 63% up from the 9.9 billion euros seen in the first half of 2020. And the number of companies divested is also up by 12% from the same period last year. All this compares well with the first half of 2029, where divestments were 1 billion more than the figures I just mentioned. So when we look at those figures, which are declared by our GPs, I think that a record year is in the making. Next slide, please. This positive news flow should not make us complacent and forget altogether the need to show that our industry not only contributes to the European economy, as amply shown in these statistics, but also to society at large. Let me wrap up with something new, bold, and very much designed to tackle head-on the reputational issues that have clung to our industry for decades now. We're delighted to announce the recent launch of a different angle, funding people with purpose, our media partnership with BBC Global News, that will tell the real story of private equity and VC's contribution to Europe's economy and to millions of people across the continent. A series of feature films launched on October 27 promote a new narrative for European private equity and venture capital's true ambitions and achievements. They will demystify the industry by showing how it provides crucial financial support for savers and fuels business development and transformation across Europe. The initiative will give Invest Europe and its members a powerful new platform, putting us in front of one of the largest audiences of young professionals and decision makers across the continent. A different angle highlights private equity and venture capital impact across 4 key pillars: contribution to European citizens' pensions and saving, job creation and employment protection, ESG and sustainability, and last but not least, the creation of tech and biotech unicorns. Invest Europe has worked with the BBC's content studio to produce an initial film for each of the pillars, and members contributed also to that communication effort. These highlight examples of our members' outstanding work, as diverse as groundbreaking innovation in the treatment of mental health or job creation in the agricultural sector. As you can see, we're trying to speak to the hearts and minds of European citizens through our work. And this marks a different angle for us all. Thank you for your attention.